Beep, beep. It's Steam Zone time, Ben.
Let's do it.
We are in this thing. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Steam Zone. We got some topics this week that have been percolating. Ben, speaking of percolation, do you see what the latest from the CTO of Palantir, the billionaire CTO of Palantir, I'll have you know, one of the first employee billionaires of the company, Shyam Sankar. Do you see what Shyam had out this week?
No, but I saw it made a lot of noise on Twitter. Can you break it down for us?
We love some noise on the X. Well, Shyam had a tweet saying, basically putting forth a plan for responding to economic warfare that he says is waged by China. Here's what we got. We offered China peaceful coexistence. We funded their industry, educated their children, brought them into the global economy. And what do? According to Shyam, they murder our children with fentanyl, sabotage our critical infrastructure, strangle our supply chains. America has a positive sum spirit. No country did more for Chinese prosperity than America. So why has no country done more to undermine America than China? Provocative, not inherently false. It doesn't ring particularly false to me. Ben, what do you think about Shyam's take here on America's relationship to China?
It is a complicated relationship to China, right? A couple things like I would say, which is there is no doubt in my mind that China is doing stuff to hurt us. And we have to take action against that. We cannot sit passively by, right? And all the things that Shyam said are right? Like they're hurting us with fentanyl. They have sabotaged our critical infrastructure. And whether purposely or not, and if probably purposely, our supply chains are now beholden with them. So we need to take action. Period. End of story. If you believe in this country, right? It is also true, like, we haven't been perfect to China. They haven't been perfect to us. And we can spend all the time in the world, but it's all at some cost going back and forth, right? Which I'm not an apologist for America. I'm just saying, like, no one is perfect. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is going forward, how do we prepare to win? If you believe, like I do, like I think this showed us, that America should win. When it comes down to Chinese hegemony and American leadership, we should win. And so the question is, what do we do now? Because however we got there, whatever mistakes were made, whatever actions China took purposely, it's not even interesting. Let the historians figure out the details. The questions that matter are how do we win in the future? How do we win protecting our children against fentanyl? How do we win by rebuilding our critical infrastructure? How do we rebuild our supply chains? That to me doesn't mean that we can't also have peaceful existence with China, but we do that from a position of having the optionality and the strength to protect ourselves and to move forward as part of the global economy.
All right, so let me offer you maybe an alternative take here, Ben, which is brought to us by one Justine Haig from Cambridge, United Kingdom. And Mr. Justine says this: the utter bullshit by the CTO of Palantir, Shyam Sankar, needs to be called out. The U.S. never offered China peaceful coexistence, he says. The U.S. wanted China subordinated. They wanted China's cheap labor inserted into their supply chains. They got extremely lucrative deals for decades. He says that in reality, it's not that America did more for Chinese prosperity, it's the opposite, right? He argues the electronics giant Apple stole basically $227 billion in operating profit over 10 years from China. Consumers in the U.S. have benefited from China. What he says is the only crime China's committed is developing its economy. Is that right?
I just can't believe that that's true. Like, this is so ridiculous, right? And this does not mean that, like, the answer is, like, these, you know, that we're perfect. I'm not saying America's perfect. I'm not saying everything we've done isn't in our self-interest. Of course we're self-interested. But, like, come on. China, if you look at how China has grown as a country from when we got involved and Nixon made détente, right? And warmed up to China, they have absolutely benefited from the relationship with the U.S. Again, doesn't mean everything was perfect, but But like, come on, like we've wildly invested time, resources. I mean, American tourism, American industry. I'm not saying again we were perfect, but come on, it is a ridiculous take to say that it was all evil. And then the only question, like, Joe Steen, I don't know where you're from. I don't know if you're. It sounds like he's from England, so he's not directly involved in this. But funny for the actual people, the colonialists who actually occupied some of China. Being the guy to critique our peaceful coexistence with them, but come on, I mean, this is just ridiculous, Noah. Like we have absolutely benefited from the relationship. I think we should try to benefit from the relationship in the future. We've made mistakes. Doesn't matter what they are. We need to move forward going, how do we ensure that American values are the ones that win?
Yeah, Ben, let's find a period here, brother. You don't need to twist yourself in pretzels. This guy, I don't know if all they got left in the UK is people either looking for the commune or the caliphate. I don't know where this nutjob got his crap from. I mean, the idea that America has been subverting China. Look, you can argue that there are different paths to what we could do now in the future. But to not recognize that China has benefited from, IP theft from the United States over the last 2 decades, that China has not benefited from the access to American companies, to American universities over the last 2 decades. You gotta have your head somewhere that ain't too light. It's not too light wherever he's got his head. Let me tell you something. The idea that Shyam, he says the mask is off. The only world they'll accept is a totally subverted China. People, for 2 decades, every American president, right and left, basically said the same thing, which is that China will be peacefully accommodated into the global order. It's only in the last 2 administrations that we've acknowledged, oh, look, these guys don't want to play in this system. They want a totally new system. And so now, the reason that America is feeling the need to flex its might, you can disagree. I don't really care. You can agree or disagree with the economic policy. We can all, there's things we probably like, there's things we don't like. Who cares? The idea that this came unprovoked just because the United States said, oh, China's growing its economy. People, China's economy's been growing for 20 years. In fact, a hell of a lot faster than it's growing now. Chinese economic growth has been slowing the last few years, right? It's nuts. It doesn't make any sense. This guy, the only person who took his mask off is Mr. Joe Steen, Joe Steen Hogue over here, who needs to get the hell out of the discourse about American foreign policy. Shyam, Godspeed, man. I think good ideas about how we maneuver through this period so that we can resume the economic prosperity here in this country, in the United States of America without crushing each other. That's a good thing. But this is not an issue of the U.S. being unreasonable and taking full advantage. Yes, both sides do things that the other don't like, but on the whole, I think we tried globalization, and now there is a reaction against, and it's not because we woke up on a different side of the pillow.
Okay, Noah, we solved that issue. Okay, Noah, we solved that issue. Fun tweet that I enjoyed this week. This guy games LinkedIn, right? He makes a fake Goldman Sachs role, says he works at Goldman Sachs, DMs people at other banks, and then refers himself with his real thing to get networking calls and to wind up landing at Goldman Sachs. So plaudits to the hustle. Probably not good to do so much lying gray area. But to me, it raises this larger issue on LinkedIn, which you and I probably spend too much time on. Not as much of a waste of time as some of our Twitter time. But there is no way to have a two-sided validation, Noah, right? Where I can say that I work for defense tech jobs, but I don't actually have to work for defense tech jobs. I can say that I'm at Goldman, and I don't actually have to do it. And it just seems like a solvable problem. What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, this was funny. I saw Ryan Peterson from Flexport, I think, had something about this week, where he said, here's 2 people who say they work at Flexport. The only problem is only one of them, in fact, works at Flexport. Yeah, it's interesting. It's actually interesting that not more people have done this. There's actually, in some ways, well, who knows? There's either less LinkedIn fraud than you might expect, or there's a lot, and we just don't acknowledge it because we don't know. It's not a lot of this stuff is not falsifiable. Kind of interesting there. So double opt-in system would seem to make sense. Like it would go request to the the admin or something on LinkedIn who would approve you. I don't know. That seems like it's a fairly easy fix. I don't know. LinkedIn engineers, what do we think? Why has that not been done?
I think it does connect to a larger issue in this kind of ecosystem that we're in now, which is how do you evaluate talent? How do you build teams? And I think it really asks a question. As a founder, I'm asking this question constantly, which is, in this crazy world and in the AI slop world we're about to enter, how do you distill? How do you evaluate talent? How do you find good fits? Open-ended question. I don't have a good take here. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, so we look at a lot of this stuff and through some of the stuff with defense sectors we've done over the last couple of years. DTJ, quick birthday celebration here, Ben. Defense Tech Jobs turned 100 this week. That was a big deal. That means somebody's been writing those things for the last 2 years. That somebody may or may not be me. But actually, it's been more, almost 3 years. The reality is, I think the talent game in the federal market, first of all, the employment market generally is not great right now. So no matter what everyone tells you, I don't know what the jobs numbers are saying. I'm sure I have a lot of friends who are very accomplished in their respective fields who are actively looking for jobs. It's taken a long time, even from good people with a lot of experience, to land roles. So to those of you out there, you're not alone. Keep the faith. I will say the federal space, the defense space, seems to still rocketing. It's still up and to the right. There's a lot of hiring going on, both on the always on the technical side, but also on the sales side. It's definitely true, for some of these organizations that have built great product. The limiting factor isn't more engineers, although engineers are still hard to find. And the limiting factor is you get a salesperson who's really cooking with gas, who's able to get those roles. So we'll see. I do think your point about sales, or about team construction, is well taken, and it actually brings up something for me. I don't know if you saw news this week. Sequoia Capital, famous venture fund, it's had a lot of controversy. There's one partner in particular, Sean McGuire, has been very, very vocal about his political views, both about Israel, about Zohran Mamdani here in New York. The COO of Sequoia, I think, is Muslim and was upset that Sean wasn't disciplined for that and just resigned. And so, you have this interesting thing. We see more and more of this now. We see this all the time. People kind of opting in or out of companies depending on who they support on whatever political issue is the thing of the day. And we've seen this around racial issues. We've seen this around certainly Israel-Palestine. There's a lot of that. Maybe the abortion issue. It's been a few years now. So this one, what was interesting about this, Ben, wasn't the news story so much as what the reflection. And Eric Newcomer had a really interesting take on this, which is that so you had Doug Leone and Mike Moritz on the opposite ends of the political spectrum. One very liberal, one very conservative. And what was remarkable was how well they worked together, because the purpose of the firm, Ben, and I think people forget this, is not to affirm or to contradict your personal political views. The purpose of the firm is, if you're of the Friedman School, is profit maximization. In the venture game, it's to find great companies, back exceptional founders who deliver outsized returns for investors. That's what they did. That's what they were exceptional That's what they were exceptional at. And their political views were ancillary to that. They were secondary. They didn't matter, right? You deal with that at home. That doesn't affect your ability to do the job. In fact, it probably makes you more likely to pick winners because you're not selecting based on these preconceived biases that one partner or another has. So I'd love to see more of that, Ben. I know there's kind of the great balkanization right now happening in American companies and organizations, but the old Sequoia model of the Mary Madeline and James Carville model of partnership is one that maybe some people should give a second look to.
Yeah, I think it raises a great point, right? And it ties to what we're talking about: LinkedIn, building teams, building, how do you evaluate talent? Part of that is evaluating, like, how do you bring different skill sets to your team? It's something I've thought a lot about throughout my career, right? For being a platoon commander in the Marine Corps, having to build a diverse team before a deployment of like language skill sets, right? We're deploying to Southeast Asia and I need a Tagalog linguist and I need the other million dialects that we have in the Filipino area, right? And so that's a simplistic description, right? But throughout, you're building teams and thinking about your team as someone who thinks in different ways, right? And so someone who I think it's less so targeting like I want a Democrat and a Republican on their team, but someone who's smart and wound up thinking one way, and someone who's also smart and wound up thinking a different way, probably approach problems in really different ways, and that'll make a better final solution for your team.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and close that one out. Ben, so one more topic that I thought was pretty cool, pretty interesting this week. You heard of Recoding America? Do you remember Jen Pahlka, one of the OG digital service folks in the U.S. government?
Doge before Doge was cool, right?
Something like that. I don't know. USDS, maybe something of the sort. 18F, kind of the old digital services crew. Well, Jen's been leading an organization called Recoding America, and this week she announced something new: the Recoding America Fund. What is it? The Recoding America Fund, Ben, is a $120 million commitment over the next 6 years. So, for those keeping track at home, that's about $20 million a year that they are going to pump in to what they say build on the work of many over the past decades to modernize our government. What does that mean? They're focusing on unnecessary government bloat. They're focusing on transparency, accountability, and modernization. They're focusing on a diverse but coherent field that advocates. I actually can't understand what the fuck any of this means. Transparency, accountability, and modernization. And speaking of teams, what I think is really interesting about this crew is that it's a deliberately bipartisan, actually kind of spectral approach to this question of competence in governance, which, bipartisan was big for a while. You don't really hear too much about bipartisan today. But if you look at the team that they're putting together to do this, you're taking a CEO from USAID, remember that organization? Then you're adding in some folks from different philanthropic organizations, the Packard Foundation, Alta Futures, RMR, Minerva Fund involved. You're taking the Federation of American Scientists, the Niskasen Center, a whole group, Foundation for American Innovation, Tech Congress, across the kind of what you'd call civil society. And then this advisory board that really does span, right? So you've got everybody from Professor at Johns Hopkins SAIS, Professor at Stanford, Professor or Senior Fellow at AEI, Foundation for American Innovation, Marina Nietzsche, Marshall Koslov. You've got people left, right, and center here, all working together to tackle this kind of nebulous topic of good governance, state capacity, but also right-sizing and rationalization. What do you think is... So that's the story, Ben. Do we have any sense on kind of what this fund is going to be all about, or what you'd hope to see them do?
I have no idea what they claim that, great buzz, great website, like all in for that. I'm excited. Like the goals of like clean sheet organization of the government, right? Like we have to be able to have good people work like modern government, like and local government being a place where like that is most measurable. It seems like you'd want a team that has a wild set of experiences, right? And part of those experiences, like if you're on the left, you'll say that AEI is overseeing a bunch of failures. If you're on the right, you'll say that USAID is a bunch of failures. Either way, you want some people who have failed in the mix, right? Because they're going to have an idea about what worked and didn't work. You're going to want people who have tried and have different belief systems, right? This is the same theme we've been talking about. If you want to make actual things work, right? I think this shows that this person, that Jennifer Pahlka, is very serious about doing something, right? I don't think you build a team like that to not actually try and make a real impact. So I'm excited to see what they do. Who knows? But I think you especially like you know you're going to get blowback, right? There are going to be extremists on both sides. They're going to say, how could you have this person as part of the team? How could you have that person as part of the team, right? And I think that they're all on one team together, I think, makes that, to me, a formidable team that we should be keeping an eye at the Steam Zone to see what they get up to.
We sure will, and maybe we'll even have some of them on here to discuss. Who knows? All right, let's go ahead and close that one out. Next up, Ben, we've got a little guest this week with some interesting news from our old friends at Mission Cultivate. Let's see what the team's up to.
All right, welcome back. We've got an exciting new role editor of a new publication. Tell us about it, Beau. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here. I gotta say, we all really enjoy what you guys do with the Steam Zone. Everybody on our team loves to watch it. I think you guys are taking the radical approach of talking about things people are interested in. So really happy to be here. As you said, I have a new title that I'm really excited for as editor of something called the MC Post. And so if you haven't heard about it yet, don't worry. It's been launched for 1 week. So we're still really...
We're early adopters here on the Steam Zone, but people like to get it early. So get on their mc.news, and here we'll share it on the screen so you can kind of take a look at what the homepage looks like. Sorry to interrupt.
Perfect. So, and as you're pulling it up, just the short answer of what is the MC Post, it's a weekly roll-up of curated news from around defense and national security, and it's published every Saturday. And that's a really intentional thing that we're doing by making this a weekly publication. So, I mean, news is getting faster and faster and more important, and we are saying, hey, we're gonna pump the brakes real quick. We're gonna say, wouldn't it be great if once a week you could slow down, check out what's going on around the defense industrial base, maybe grab your coffee and dive in a little bit deeper on the news of the week. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, with the MC Post.
Yeah,
and is that why Saturday is the day?
Yeah, it is. So the thought was, and I would say to truly understand what we're doing with this, you have to kind of take a step back and think about what we're doing with Mission Cultivate, which, spoiler alert, MC Post of Mission Cultivate. So the same team that produced the MC Post is the team that built Mission Cultivate, which is the new defense national security networking platform that also has only been launched for a few weeks. So we're really all about new stuff here going on. But what we did with Mission Cultivate is we took a look at what was going on around, normal social media. When you think about LinkedIn's of the world and Signal and Reddit, and one of the problems is that doesn't really fit the needs of the defense industrial base. We're having more sensitive discussions. I always like to point out that if you walked up to somebody in a bar and said hey, what do you do and what security clearance do you have? They'd be like, well, I'm not answering your question, but you can head over to my LinkedIn and you can see where I work and what security clearance I have. So we built a space that was more secure, more discreet, that only allows people in the defense industrial base, people in national security, people in government. That covers industry, academia, venture capital, bringing all the relevant voices, but really limiting it to just them. And so once we had that audience, from the earliest days of knowing that we were going to build something like that, our mind was already thinking, okay, what could we do when we have that kind of an audience? And building something like the MC Post was front of mind for us. Because really what the point of this is to, one, inform people, make their lives a little bit easier, because we have been a small business in this space and we know that being informed affects your mission and your bottom line. And so doing what we can to make, this just a little bit easier for everybody is our way of giving back a little bit. But that also generates conversation, and it bolsters the purpose of something like Mission Cultivate, to bring people together, have us be all on the same sheet of music a little bit, and then, build that conversation from there. And trust me, I recognize this is not the be all end all of news. So we're gathering links from, trade publications and from Substacks and podcasts and videos. But really at the end of the day, I liken it to, it's kind of like my Spotify playlist of what's going on in defense. It's my take on what's going on. But the reason we're doing it on Saturday, to your point, Ben, is that it's a day when you can slow down a little bit. Things aren't as crazy, and you can really dive in. How often have you been on, social media? You scroll past an article, start to read it, you're like, oh, this is way too long. Like, let me come back to that, and then you don't come back to it. So, let me flag
It's an open tab in my browser. I'm getting
That's
to
it.
it.
That's
I'm getting
good.
to it.
I saw a post yesterday that was talking about like good habits online, and it said if you have more than 3 tabs open, like you're not actually paying attention. Who has 3 or fewer tabs open?
Yeah, that seems like serial killer vibes. If you only have 3, if you have like 2 tabs on your browser, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So the lead in here when you log onto the site is that if you're the type who wants to know about things the minute they happen, the MC post may not be for you. But if you like most of us don't have the time to refresh dozens of sources every day, we invite you to slow down, grab your coffee, and catch up on what matters. Yeah, I it's funny, Beau, when we started the Steam Zone, the initial thought was to do kind of a run through of all of the the news of the news is to cover ourselves, because there's nothing that people in media like more than covering themselves, right? So making yourself the story. So we did a run through of who was on different podcasts each week. But the reality is a lot of podcasts are recorded, weeks, months ahead of time. It's not necessarily up to date with the latest. This will be interesting to see how this goes. Is there a plan at all to do original reporting, or right now you're focused on aggregation?
Yeah, so at first we're focused on aggregation just because it's the low-hanging fruit right in front of us, but the roadmap is definitely to get our own content on there. So this week there will actually be a story from Jerry Ramey, who's one of our managing principals, and then the goal is that we kind of open this up as we go, because as that conversation grows, we can pull in voices. Kind of my grand strategy, I guess you could say, is like, as we're getting all of these voices together, I would love to be able to see like debates on both sides going on within this page. So the Cyber debate that's happening right now is a great example of that. There are very prominent voices in favor of reform for Cyber, and there are very prominent voices, I guess, defending Cyber mills. If we could get both of them in one space and have the best arguments presented on both sides, that would be amazing. So something like that is what we're looking at.
Cool. How do people? Is it a subscription? Is it in your inbox? Is it just a push to the website? How do people read it?
Yeah, the easiest way, and we lucked out by getting one of the shortest domains possible.
Amazing domain. Sad.
Go to mc.news and you'll see it right there. You can choose to have it sent to your inbox, so at the click of a button, and then it'll pop up each week for you on Saturday. I do ask, if you like what you read in there, please share it with your colleagues. If you don't like what you read, let us know so we can adapt the content and then still share it with your colleagues. Trying to get the word out about it. So.
Great. All right. Well, mc.news, the MC Post, the Mission Cultivate team continues to innovate in the space. Beau, thanks for stopping by Steam Zone.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Great. Should we start our Steams for the week?
Why not? I don't want to deprive you another minute, man. What do you got?
I'm going to Steam, this is a New York-based show, right? The people might not know. And I don't know about but I am a diehard New York Knicks fan. And this is opening week. We'll have had a few games, so by the time this airs. But Knicks opening night looks amazing, right? Mike Brown played 11 guys in the team. We talk about building teams, right? Instead of and all praise to Tom Thibodeau, who got this team from where we were, which was hell, to now being a relevant basketball team in the NBA. But what Mike Brown did in the first game of playing 11 guys, and we still have 2 more guys, Josh Hart and Mitch Robinson, who are coming back, but playing 11 guys, that is building a team, that is the Jennifer Pahlka move for the New York Knicks. That is the Sequoia OG move for the New York Knicks. So we see it in business. We see it Moritz and Leone, right? We see it. Do it on the Knicks. I'm excited to have a team that is really, really deep and excited for the basketball season.
All right. Let's go Knicks. Here's what I got this week, Ben. A little Viva Las Vegas, where I've been spending a few days here. I got to tell you, man, I've been hearing the stories I've been reading some headlines. The fees are up. The tourism's down. I don't know, not at MCON. We had big weekend at MCON. The military convention, a celebration of military culture. I got news for you, Ben. This is some people. The more people I talk to, especially a lot of veterans, I ask a lot of people, "Hey, have you heard of this thing?" It's a newcomer to the scene, so not everybody had heard of it. But this is what I want to see. I want to see this thing become the Renaissance Fair in 10 years. All right. I don't know if you've ever been to the Renaissance Fair. I went a few weeks ago. I thought the Renaissance Fair was for kids. Turns out, spoiler alert, the Renaissance Fair is not for kids. It's for adults. And the adults go all out for the Renaissance Fair. Well, same deal here, Ben. MCON is not just for veterans. It is not just for the military. It should be for civilians to understand what this lifestyle is all about, what the culture is of this group. This is why we wanted to get involved with Defense Game Day. We wanted to spread some of the lore of this event, this tight-knit group of people, all of the successes, some of the struggles. It's important that we integrate some of that culture into American culture because American military culture is American culture. We can't leave that as siloed as it's been. So that's what I'd say is check out mcon.live. Shout out to Waco Hoover and the team over there doing a great job. And we hope to see some of you next year in Las Vegas.
All right. Great week in the Steam Zone. We'll see you next week.
Take care.